Good day, and welcome to this edition of Big Ideas in Supply Chain. My name is Ann Robinson, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at Kinaxis. My guest today is Beth Morgan, founder and CEO of Boom Global Network. Beth and her colleagues at Boom recently conducted a survey asking supply chain practitioners, what is it you really need to thrive in your career? And the results were fascinating. Welcome, Beth. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for inviting me, Anne. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad you could join us here in headquarters and make the
I
trek
know, in
over.
this lovely new location. It's fantastic.
It is fantastic. Can you start by just sharing a little bit more about yourself, your background? And I know you and I share a passion for supply chain. And really, what motivated this particular survey? Can you sort of share some more details?
Yeah, absolutely. So I won't go right back to the beginning, but my career started in supply chain in the late 90s, actually, working with AMR Research, which was a supply chain advisory firm based in Boston, actually. So for the last 20 or more years, I've had the privilege of researching, analysing, writing about, speaking about best practices in supply chain across all different areas. Started out in procurement, supplier management, sourcing, but more recently spent time in my roles at SCM World and Gartner looking at the people side of supply chain. So what does it take to create, develop, grow the teams that run our supply chains?
Mm-hmm. And this survey, originally it was sort of focused on women, but we really looked at expanding it to include all supply chain practitioners.
Absolutely. So yes, in 2019, I set up a global community for women in supply chain. And one of the things that we wanted to do was open up, as you say, the conversation. So for the last 3 years, we've done a global survey of all practitioners in supply chain and sort of really taken their pulse on issues of the moment. So going back, so this is pre-pandemic, we were looking at career progression, what were the enablers and obstacles, what were people's motivations in terms of where they wanted to develop in supply chain. Last year, we of course were in the depth of the pandemic, so we were looking at, okay, what is life like now, working remotely, working in a pandemic environment. This year, we've kind of coming out of that, nearly there.
Thank
and
goodness.
Now we're saying, okay, given all the the tough times we've had these last couple of years and the challenges that continue to come our way, as a supply chain professional, what keeps you motivated? What do you need? Not only to get the job done, but actually to thrive and really succeed in your career.
And what were the themes that emerged from those surveys results?
It was really interesting that there were 4 emerging themes that really stood out. And the first one, I mean, it kind of in no particular order, but one that we had to put front and center was this whole issue of leadership. So what supply chain professionals are telling us, this is men, women, actually cross-industry, cross-geography, what they're looking for is a really clear leadership. So we've called that this part of the research, leading with vision, clarity, and compassion. The second thing was looking about, okay, how can companies actually support supply chain professionals in their professional ambitions? So despite all the challenges, supply chain professionals, as we know, they're entirely ambitious. They want to solve problems. They want to grow. They want to develop. So it's like, what can we do as supply chain leaders, as organizations, to help them grow in that? So that was number 2. So leadership, support professional ambition. The third one was provide the right tools to do the job. So this, I know we're going to talk about that a lot more because this was actually really critical to what it takes to succeed. The last one, and perhaps this is again very contextual given the challenges we've been through, how can we support the work-life needs of today's supply chain professional?
Yeah, those are all such critical themes. So let's talk about the first one around leadership. People said they wanted visible, empowering senior leadership that was clear, well communicated, and with a strategic vision. Can you think of an example where that's been done particularly well and maybe some of the characteristics that really made that successful?
Absolutely. I'm going to call on a couple of things, actually. I'm not going to name any companies in particular because that's probably not fair to do. But there were some research interviews that we did on the back of the survey where we really sort of dug a little bit deeper into, okay, what does leadership look like? And, the characteristics that the survey respondents told us were that they wanted somebody, we've mentioned already, having clear vision, communicating that vision, having a positive work culture, so creating that, maintaining that, so walking the talk on that. Willingness to support change, and that touches a lot of different areas. One was visibility and access to leadership, so you can actually have that conversation with those that are leading you. The third one, or not the third one, I think the fifth one now, was empowerment and support. And again, that comes back to these issues of professional development. How can I be given the right tools? How can I be given the right knowledge, the information that I need to succeed?
And I think the word compassion came out over and over again. Do you have any ideas or tips maybe on how to show compassion as a leader in these roles while not compromising on delivering results?
Yeah, I mean, and that's an interesting one because I don't think those two things are ever mutually exclusive, that it's possible to deliver results. But I think this is now more than, we've seen the last couple of years, we had to fight fires, we had to get the job done. And that brought with it a lot of stress, long hours, all those things. And actually, there's been a bit of fallout from that in terms of burnout and so on, which is still prevalent today. So the question is, how can you lead through such, challenging times, but do that in a very, I want to just say, human way,
Right.
where actually you can have a, understanding for what people need and help them do that, give them the right tools. And quite frankly, sometimes just ask the question, how are you? That's come up again and again, particularly for people who've had to work remotely, is, they want managers just to spend time saying, how are you? What do you need? And I don't think there's any sort of, puppies and butterflies and fluffy things to do with that. It's about being human,
Right.
And giving people, what they need to succeed.
It's amazing how some of those traits that we might have just considered normal working environment have gone to the wayside with everybody having been remote for the last couple of years and having to remember how to engage in the work environment again. It's been it's really been a relearning of skills, and I think you're absolutely right. Just some basic questions like, how are you? What's going on? How's your transition back into the workplace? It's an important discussion to have.
Absolutely, because we're still going through so much change, readjusting to these sort of new hybrid environments, as you say, getting back into the workplace. We've had, certain, if you haven't been on the front line, perhaps out in, in a plant or in logistics where you've had to keep on doing your frontline job, but if you have been working from home for the last couple of years, we've kind of got used to that, and it has been back-to-back calls, and now it's just like, okay, how do we transition back to how things used to be?
That's right. And coming out of that, people are realizing that that career progression is important, and they do have ambition, and they want to grow in the supply chain space. On top of that, we've seen this entity of supply chain change so much over the last couple of years. What did you learn about why people want to change jobs, and kind of what are some of the things that are driving that fire in the belly to progress in the supply chain space?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned the word ambitious already, and I'm going to use that again because that came out through the survey just again when we asked folks, what motivates you to be in supply chain? It's been tough. What keeps you here? What is it about it that you like? And it is that problem-solving aspect. It is, the challenge. No one day is similar to the next. All those good things. So people are, I think, hardwired to want to grow, to learn new skills. And when we ask them, okay, so what's motivating you to perhaps not stay where you are and move to another employer? The top two things were to grow in their careers faster than they are at the moment. And there's probably good reasons why they haven't, but that's fair. And the second one was to use their skills more broadly. So there is, I think, an innate desire for supply chain professionals to grow, which is, and learn new skills, which, as we're going through ongoing transformation is great news, right?
Absolutely. It goes hand in hand with sort of that next piece of the conversation around, you said that there was an interest in greater access to digitally integrated tools. And that sort of goes hand in hand with this desire to use a broader cross-functional set of capabilities. What were the top things that employees or the survey respondents said would help boost their performance at work?
Well, there were two things. One was leadership, which we've talked about already. The other one was actually an open question. So in the survey, we asked, give people choices from things that they had to choose from. One question was kind of if you could wave a magic wand and have something that would help boost your performance at work and deliver what you need to do, what would it be? And the answer came back loud and clear: better access to digital tools. And alongside that, of course, information. So having the right information at the right time with the tools that they need to do the job well.
So they really wanted to get out of the spreadsheet kung fu that we've sort of been living in as well.
Well, I mean, I think we all know that, spreadsheets, they're out there, most certainly. And if you look at, the sort of the phase of maturity of growth in terms of digital transformation, the majority of companies, we reckon around, just under 60%, are still working in environments where they've got legacy tools, siloed tools, very difficult to access information when you need it. And it's only really, there are companies who've moved beyond that and are using real-time information, which they're sharing not just internally, but also with their tier 1, tier 2, 3 customers and suppliers. But, that's not the rule. That's probably still the exception today.
And I believe that the respondents also characterized where they'd like to prioritize their own learnings. Could you talk about some of the categories where people really wanted to learn more, understand more, help their companies really enable and prioritize their supply chain investments?
Yeah, so this was a question where we actually gave a list of about 15 emerging technologies and areas of interest. And again, sort of a resounding response from the survey respondents was really around 3 areas. The first one was sustainability. That was head and shoulders, an area where folks said they wanted to learn how that would apply to them and learn more about that. The next 2 were around advanced analytics, and then more broadly digital transformation and change. So there were lots of other ones beyond that, so machine learning, advanced planning, lots of things like that. But it was those 3 things. And I think if you look at those, sustainability is an interesting one because it's a big subject, but all the others, again, are very information related. They rely heavily on data. And for that, you need the right tools for that. And you need the right know-how in order how to interpret that data and how to apply it. So there's a definite desire for people to understand more about that.
And now, as we're getting close to the end, the last issue to really come out was around work-life balance and a desire to have better work-life balance. We know that burnout is still an issue. We know that people are challenged, as the supply chain work environment has evolved. What did the respondents say would help them have better work-life balance? What are they looking for?
Yeah, this was a really interesting one and actually still slightly worrying in a way, because we did ask the same question this year as we did last year, which is looking at levels of burnout, and they haven't actually changed that much. So this is still a prevalent issue that I think we shouldn't ignore. What we also asked is, okay, when you're looking for an ideal employer, when you're looking for, maybe for your next job move, what are the things that are almost, deal breakers for you, must-haves? And there were 2 things. One was access to hybrid or remote working, and the second thing was flexible working.
Okay.
So, and this was not gender specific. It was men and women saying exactly the same thing. I think we've learned from the last couple of years that it is possible to work in those ways. Now we've got the opportunity, and quite rightly, we need to come together in person to meet, even if it's just to socialise, but to actually get together in person. But how can we blend that into what we've learned from that into this new world? Because as I say, these are now table stakes.
Was that similar across levels as well? I wasn't sure if you had levels in the survey.
We did. From an age perspective, or you could say experience or level of seniority, however you want to cut that, the needs were slightly different by age. So I think younger folks were looking for, again, visibility into career path. Where is my career going to take me? They really wanted to know about that. I think as you go through your career, we kind of have a bit more understanding about what that does look like and where we might go. So sort of mid-career and upwards was probably slightly more weighted towards that, having that access to flexibility.
Interesting. Well, we have one last question that we've asked all of our podcast guests. So a little different flavor than the conversation we've been having so far. If you were the chief supply chain officer of the world, what would be your first priority for transforming the world's supply chains?
Yeah, big doorstopper question right at the
That's
end.
right.
Thanks. It is a huge question. And actually, when I first read that, and thank you for sending it to me in advance, because I think it really does need some thought, actually, my first thought was actually sustainability. And actually, it does speak to what we've learned from the survey. I'm not alone in that. I think in terms of, we need to protect our future for the environment, for the planet, and that in terms of supply chain, we have a massive responsibility to deliver on that in manufacturing, in logistics, in providing value into, emerging economies and societies. There's so much good that we can do in supply chain. So for me, it would be double down on that. And I'm going to blend in that. So not a second thing, but fundamental to that is bringing the right people to the table, all people to the table. So obviously, I'm a little bit biased here because I represent BOOM, Community for Women. We need to bring more women into the conversation. And, you were asking this question, CSCO of the world. I mean, that's huge. That made me think of the United Nations, actually, and the role that they're playing in this. And that call to action is not dissimilar about how can we bring more women into that conversation, being around the table when we're talking about critical decisions around sustainability, climate change, and the environment. So
that's a fantastic
there we go.
answer. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a great conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And if you would like to learn more about Beth, about BOOM, have a look at those survey results, please see the link in the podcast bio. And please join us next time as we explore more big ideas in supply chain.